Hey, folks. All right, so this time we've got a shorter kind of discussion and a little bit less of what to do here, but nonetheless, some important stuff going on. So let's jump right into it. Chapter 19, the first question: how do you think other characters see Holden? You can begin by Carl Luce, I guess. In chapter 19 and continue with other characters, do you think these ideas are how people see Salinger? Um, Carl thinks Holden is childish. With their conversation of Carl's girlfriends and the women he sees and sex, uh, Holden here displays some naivete, and just ignorance on sex. And he starts asking Carl very personal questions, to which Carl says, "We can stop now." Um, and I think he even says, "You should see my father, a psychiatrist." It's gotten kind of that bad. His immaturity and his desire to know things has gotten bad enough for people to say you should seek help, which eventually, even if it's not voluntary, he does. um, and as far as because I think obviously Holden is at least some sort of image of Salinger. I don't know if it's this is how other people see Salinger. Maybe this is Salinger's own insecurity about how he's worried that other people see him like he's crazy or he's immature or whatever else. Um, and so I think it's working on that level too for the author, not just uh, the character. All right. Number two, in chapter 20, Holden visits the duck pond. What does he notice at the duck pond? Why is this significant? And what do the ducks symbolize? We've already talked about this symbol before a little bit. And of course, we said when he was talking to the cab driver, where do the ducks go when the pond freezes over, and how that's a symbol for at least the most common interpretation is of Ali's death, and he's wondering and asking about what happens after you die, where do you go, and whatnot. This time in chapter 20, um, it's Holden, but Holden thinking now about his own death. Um, Not only does Holden wish his own death, but he thinks about kind of the aftermath. He thinks about the funeral. He thinks about the people who are mourning him. The kind of interesting thing here is that um, in addition to everything else, he basically says he does not want, uh, or he doesn't think his parents will let or should let Phoebe attend the funeral. Again, this is one more example of Holden trying to protect Phoebe and trying to save her innocence, um, and keep her kind of in that state of childhood as long as possible. Um, okay, good. So that's another aspect of the ducks in the pond symbol and what it means and to whom and things like that. Number three, describe Phoebe. What is she like compared to Holden? This is, now that I think about it, it's almost an unfair question, at least unfair to Holden. Um, as we know, Holden is kind of spiraling down. He ends up in a mental institution. So almost anyone else by comparison is going to seem, again, as long as they're not, more extreme than Holden is, they're going to seem awfully calm and rational and smart. Phoebe certainly seems a lot more mature than Holden, which is kind of ironic since um, maturity is usually one of those marks of adulthood. And so Phoebe, being a child, being more mature than Holden, the almost adult, um, is kind of ironic. It's also, in a way, almost tragic because it shows that Phoebe not only is not going to kind of keep or hasn't kept her innocence, but she's already, in some way, um, kind of become an adult, um, being able to handle Holden rationally and even sensitively. Um, so yeah, and that's not part of Holden's unreliable narrator. That's just kind of how we see um, Phoebe for the most part. Um, so Phoebe is the most mature, most rational person in the family, as far as we can tell. Um, and she certainly has a good effect, a calming effect on Holden, and that's a good thing. Although there are certain things that are going to happen that probably should, um, which we sort of know, sort of don't know what that is. Um, Spoiler alert, we're not really going to know exactly what lands him in the mental institution. We just know that he ends there and we see his spiraling down. But there's no one big uh, event or thing that Holden does or says or thinks. Um, so uh, be prepared for that which is not going to come. All right, so that's it. Short one this time. Um, we only have two more kind of sections left. Those will be much longer, much more kind of in-depth stuff. So that's it for this one. Short one. I will see you in the next chapters.